LinkedIn, welcome again to the Africa AI Summit for 2023 edition. And we have already had conversations regarding global trends in AI. And also, we've also talked about the general state of AI in Africa, the development, and also the research bit of it. So those joining us, welcome. If you have any questions regarding the previous sessions with the different speakers, feel free to also have the same on our chat, and we'll be more than willing to post it to our speakers from LinkedIn or from whichever platform you are joining us from. So as I was saying, we have Hamed Zekri, I believe that's it, is a lawyer and a legal researcher, corporate researcher, political and economic researcher in Africa and Middle East. Zekri is from Egypt, so that gives us like another view from another side of the continent, because we've had people from South Africa, we've also had people from Kenya, and now we are having someone from Egypt, who is like the northern side of Africa, to just also get to tell us how the AI situation and the uptake is in Egypt, and also to just also tell us how research in general is in Middle East, because I know there is a lot of AI funding coming from Middle East and a lot of AI projects coming from Middle East. So I know Hamed will be in a good enough position to take us through that and also just get us to know. So that's from my side of introduction. So I'll give Wafula to introduce himself, and then Mr. Hamed can also go ahead and also introduce himself to the audience.
Thank you, Warren. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so thank you, Warren. So my name is John Wafula. I am a senior data scientist and also the commercial lead at ACE Africa. ACE Africa is an AI accelerating center. I'm really glad to be part of the panelist, and I think AI ethics in AI is a vital concern from all stakeholders within the players, from data privacy experts, from the practitioners, and even from the consumers themselves. So, my background is in statistics and computer science, masters in biostatistics. Um, uh, Most have been in I have been I've mostly been working previously. I've mostly been working around business restructuring services with PwC and KPMG. So it was mostly around solving business problem from a financial aspect point of view, looking at risk and quality mitigation, looking at task biasness and task basics. So that is when I decided to sort of incorporate statistical and scientific uh, um, methodologies in solving the same problem. So I've been around business consulting for quite some time, and I'm really glad to be here to share my point of view. So thank you, Warren, thank you, Cornelius, for inviting me here.
Thank you for that introduction. Mr. Hamed.
Ahmed, could you confirm if you can hear us kindly by unmuting your microphone? Ahmed, are you with us? Are you following along? Well, perhaps Adams, could you follow along with Mr. Zekri, perhaps with the instructions on how to use the streaming platform so that he could follow along more easily. And just as Warren has outlined, the presence of different nationalities. I know it's mostly Kenyan right now, but we have featured already 5 different nationalities during this conversation from when it started up to until now, and it's really encouraging to see the Pan-African spirit also being translated into artificial intelligence, and also the fact that Africans are willing to partake in research and development of artificial intelligence. Uh, so Sharolla, Okay, so we have a question from YouTube, but before we get to that, Sharolla has had a deep dive into ethics in AI, pinpointing also international policies and also local policies. More recently, I saw some posts being circulated around on the top statuses and also on Twitter about some of the new policies that the government is trying to enact in artificial intelligence. I think one of the policies was around the regulation of AI. One of the policies were one of the policies was around regulation of artificial intelligence, AI, and also robotics. So my question for this panel would be: what's the role of regulation in advancement of artificial intelligence? And does regulation play a huge role in hindering the development of AI or of any other field more than it's supposed also to like promote the regulated development? So let me phrase this more clearly. Does regulation stifle the progress in innovation or in artificial intelligence in this case? And what is its role in the development of artificial intelligence? So I'd like John Wafula, perhaps if you could go on this before Sharolla could add, add her own point of view on this.
So I'll speak from a practitioner's perspective, and I also think it's essential to understand also the basics when it comes to regulation in AI policy. I think there was a buzz last week when President Biden gave an executive order on um, data consumption, mostly by corporates, and I would term them as a first party or first party consumers. And then there was a lot of there was a lot of conversations. There was a lot of backlash from tech groups, from blue chip companies on this sort of regulation, because now that sort of spark in a conversation about the effect of such regulations. And you see, the thing about executive orders, these are DEFCON 5, I would say DEFCON 5 actions. And when you see a president giving an executive order, particularly concerning an emerging technology, there has to be it's something of concern. And then also highlight on what happened in Kenya during when WorldCoin was sort of rolling out these iris digital footprints for consumers. We saw uh, uh, there had to be an ex officio, I would say, ex officio committee, or an ex officio committee that was set by parliament, by the government, to sort of try to understand how what is the effect of what exactly was going on, because Kenya, we do not have let's say a standard framework that guides the consumption of data by corporates. So we had I think Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, the Ministry of Interior. There was an there was a committee, or there was a task force that was set to assess the effect of such policy, and we saw what they did. They sort of stopped the process to enable further investigation. So I think regulation is first, it's good, because now with any disruptive technology, there has to come with any pro, there has to come with con. So we always have to do a cost benefit analysis and also identify where the cons are, because let's say something like deepfakes. We've seen deepfake videos of President Biden, deepfake videos of President Obama, and we can't. There's no any framework to sort of guide or to sort of to sort of address such issues in terms of who owns what, in terms of IP, if it's IP, if it's any any issue, or any issue regarding I'd say a possession. So if that sort of uh, that sort of property is owned by a person, then you are liable to be sued if it's used the wrong way. So that is one thing, because we need to now we need to regulate how such innovations are used. And then the other thing is, such regulations um, um, should not hinder innovation. The regulations themselves should not hinder innovations, in a way that AI feeds solely relies on data. AI, for any AI system to work, it solely relies on data. So when we have regulations that sort of prohibit or sort of make the accessibility of data to AI systems, that hinders innovation, because we need data to innovate, we need data to adopt, we need data to build these ecosystems of intelligence that will sort of comprehend any other technologies or any other functions beyond or that govern our scope. So regulations should be there, but it should not also hinder. So from my own perspective, the framework to sort of govern innovation should start from data consumption, data privacy, data regulation. That is where it should start, and then it should cut across the ecosystem. We should have opinions from first the consumers. We should have opinions from practitioners, which is us. We should have opinions from the owners themselves, the guys who we are consuming data from. From my own perspective, that is regulation is it's a big issue. It's an issue of concern. It's something that should be sort of, first, it should be structured. We should have a strong framework around regulations, or in all the parameters that surround AI. AI is not just one subject. It's more of a convergence of domain. It's very multidisciplinary. It cuts across various ecosystem, various industries. So developing a strong framework that will solely or will entirely or fundamentally capture all the concerns that surround AI innovation or AI use. It's something that should be done or should be developed by different groups. It should be developed by a working group or different groups from various industries. It should be a conglomeration of many opinions. So when we are setting up such systems, it will sit on an edge, or it should sit on a nexus between fairness, unbiasedness, trustworthiness, but it should also support innovation. It should also support adoption. It should also support sustainability of these AI innovations. Yeah, so that's just my opinion on it.
Thank you. Sharolla, do you have any contribution on that before I can ask the next one?
Sorry, I would strongly agree with what John has just said. For example, you see, the example of WorldCoin. When WorldCoin came, there were ethical red flags all over. There was no transparency. We as consumers, we did not know the source. We did not know where the data was being taken to. There was no sensitization around artificial intelligence. It makes it very hard to embrace it. And this creates the need for proper legal framework to handle it. When we look at Canada, like the example that we gave, Canada has really embraced artificial intelligence, but it is so well balanced such that it goes hand in hand with the legal framework that they are creating. If we look at other areas, like he mentioned, AI is multifaceted. We need to come up with experts, even as we are creating the legal framework. It should be espoused in such a way that the legal experts are working together with technical experts to make sure that the regulation is key. Without regulation, we cannot have any system working, be it AI, be it any other type of technical system. None of these can work without a proper regulatory framework. So these growth and development should just go hand in hand with all, this innovation and all these things. Experts, technical experts, together with legal experts, come together to ensure that the growth is very inclusive in nature. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. So my next one will just be a simple one. There's this, we call them terms and conditions. I don't know how many of us get time to even read the terms and conditions before clicking continue on most of these websites that we we visit. Like I know most of the websites do have those terms and conditions. Even if you are to just create a new Gmail account, there is usually a terms and conditions attached to that. And it even comes to most of the contracts that if you're signing an employment contract, you're signing a lease contract, or most of the contracts, most people don't actually read them. They just look at if it the money, or they just look at the most important bit of it, and then the rest they just shut. Like they just say, okay, uh, continue. I agree. Like we are very impatient to um, read. We just want to consume whatever we service or good is being provided before we can, so that we just continue the rest of our lives. And I think this one also comes in when it comes to ethics, right? Let's say these organizations implementing artificial intelligence. I know like ChatGPT also has a privacy policy, but I won't say I know what it contains, right? So do we trust the consumers to take care of their own ethics, or is it um, the sole mandate of the organizations implementing the solutions to like take care of the ethics? Should we like let the consumers take care of the ethics bit of things, or should we just make it like the sole mandate of organizations to make sure that ethics is implemented while developing AI solutions? And as our panelists contribute on that, I'm just going to ask the audience, how many times have you read the terms and conditions the across the different websites that you visit? So it's an open question. You can just share your experience on the chat if you have, and if you haven't, you can just type no. Okay, so who would want to go first?
Yeah, so Warren, you see, what people do not understand is that when it comes to these terms and conditions, without proper legislative framework, without proper laws and regulations, the kind of relationship that you create on this website and e-commerce sites is contractual in nature. You're basically getting into a contract with these sites, with this, these systems. You're getting into a contract. And as an advocate, as a lawyer, when I'm representing a client in a contract kind of platform, I will ensure that my client's interests are best protected in this contract. So when you are clicking continue, clicking of continue means that you consent to being part of this contract. So you're in a contractual relationship. And that's why there is need for regulation. It means you accept all those terms and conditions. Should you want to complain later about something that has happened, you are going to be told you consented to the terms and conditions by clicking I accept, or by clicking continue, or by clicking I have read and understood. It creates and they protect themselves from liability. If you read those terms and conditions properly, it normally exonerates these systems and the back end from any liability. So if you go after them, you signed the contract virtually that binds you and that makes you accept anything that will come along after. Some of these people even sell off their intellectual property through these buttons that they click. Sometimes the data that you input, they have written in the terms and conditions that the company retains the right to retain this data and to use it on any other platform, and you do not know that you have just sold off your data or given off your data just like that for them to use it on any other platform that they would wish. So before we click these buttons and just consent, let us try and read through these terms and conditions. And at this point, when there is no regulatory framework or there's no proper structure in terms of laws, you cannot hold them accountable because the relationship is purely contractual in nature. So until there is proper regulation on even these systems, on the back end, on these AI platforms, until we have proper regulation. When you consent, you are binding yourself to a contractual relationship, and people need to realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. And also, just speaking from a consumer's perspective, like most of these things are so many, and we can like not have enough time to just do it right. So how do we make sure that it is easier for most of these people to just get whatever like is on that contract? Because like the contract is like 3 pages, and I just want to get, let's say for the example of WorldCoin, I just want to get the 7500 and move on with my life. So how do we make it
There's
easy
a bit of
for
echo
people to?
from your end.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
can
if you
I
can.
can barely hear. There's a bit of echo from your end.
Sorry about that. I think. Can you hear me now? Good. So I was saying most of these contracts are like so many pages, and people may not have that time, right? So how can, from a legal point of view, we make it easier for people to understand what they are getting to before signing this? Two, I know there is we have, if there is like is there any agency currently within Africa or locally that can advocate for consumer rights, digital rights, and which steps are these agencies taken to make sure that like data is protected, or um, just consumers are protected when it comes to some of these digital solutions?
Well, unfortunately, when you agree terms and conditions, when you agree to most of them, unfortunately, there's no. In most cases, you have. It is just very important for you to read through those terms and conditions and understand them before you click I accept. That's why they put them there. Because now, if you take legal action against such e-commerce platforms, then they will say that they have the terms and conditions there. And when you consent to it, it means you knew what you were getting yourself into, unfortunately. That is why there is proper need for regulation. Because if there is no regulation, then they can pretty much get away with anything. And when we talk about e-commerce, there's definitely legislation for consumer rights. For example, in Kenya, and I believe in most jurisdictions, consumer rights are multi-jurisdictional in nature. There are also laws, even in our constitution in Kenya here, that protect consumers. However, they are not rolling as quickly as the technology is rolling. The laws that we have currently did not include this new advent of artificial intelligence. It did not foresee. So the technological advancement is developing more rapidly than the laws. That's why currently in Africa, we are embracing AI, but there is no legislative structure. So we need experts to roll equally fast to ensure that there are laws that are regulating these platforms and these systems. So the only solution to this is having laws developed to govern what is going on, and having these laws developed as fast as the technological advancement that is currently ongoing.
I think that's well put, Sharola. I think it's really important for everyone to embrace uh, ethics in the implementation of artificial intelligence broadly. I think in our previous discussions, you can find them. You can find those on our LinkedIn's. We had a deep dive into this topic, and we discussed the various ethical concerns around the implementation of artificial intelligence. And just as you mentioned, I want to get a bit more technical for the more technical audience in our midst here. And this question, I'm guessing, would be better suited for John Wafula with his background in data science. So, Wafula, the question is about transparency. about AI transparency. We have seen open source versus closed source models. And for those who do not follow along with open source versus closed source, open source basically means that, hey, you have this AI system or AI model. You have this AI model, and everyone can see source code, everyone can review the source code, and everyone can contribute towards the advancement of new features, etc. Closed source means that Intelliverse on its own has an in-house AI system or an in-house AI model that we use to achieve a particular purpose. So this could be a closed source AI model. Could be, for example, the recommendation system by TikTok, what most of you would refer to as the TikTok algorithm, right? So it's usually a debate over what Facebook has done, how they recommend their systems, and everyone usually tries to understand how that is done for their content to be boosted. But in the real sense, most of us wouldn't, because it's proprietary to them and they wouldn't disclose such information because it's in-house to them. So transparency is such a critical issue, John, in the implementation of artificial intelligence. Do you think that AI development should be purely open sourced? More recently, we have seen meta funding projects around open source artificial intelligence. Actually, yesterday. So, do you think that AI development or the development of AI systems should be purely open source, just to ensure complete transparency?
Thank you, Cornelius. I think to address that questions, we have to again root to the basics on AI development. I want to explain a concept in AI which I'm sure you're familiar with. We call it black boxes. Black boxes are mostly AI models or AI systems that are built but then cannot be explained. So the aspect of explainability when it comes to model, it's one of the issues that are mostly raised. So there was this case in the UK, I think, where it was around COVID. There's a school in the UK that since when COVID was around, students were not able to sort of sit for the exams or sit for the last exams. So it was supposed to be the indicator if they will move to the next grade or not. So the school decided to consult machine learning experts who sort of predicted their results based on previous scores. And actually, um, in terms of explainability, they could not correctly assess what was the underpinning factors to why or to the result, or to what are the factors or the parameters that resulted to the results, because they used fast neural networks. We understand how neural networks works. We also understand how complex these mathematical functions that underpin these formulas can sometimes get complex, especially when we have several iterations over a particular data set or something. Again, I also want to explain one other very interesting machine learning concept called transfer learning, whereby we use models that are already pre-trained. I'm sure if you studied development of ChatGPT, you will understand it's mostly made of pre-trained models, and it's before you reinforce the learning, it's mostly made of pre-trained models. And more often than not, if you're writing models, of you're developing models in modern context, you'll find yourself you you're more gravitated towards pre-trained models, because now they're pre-trained on large images. Maybe you do not have that compute power because infrastructure is a problem. um, Infrastructure is a problem, and also maybe accessibility to maybe particular systems are a problem. So from my own opinion, I would say um, anything, all the components with AI need to be as open source as possible, not just in terms of ensuring the sustainability development in the ecosystem, but also in terms of fairness, in terms of talking on issues of biasness, talking in terms of issues of biasness, and also making sure that everyone is within the loop, also in terms of development of these systems. So, from my own opinion, open source is the way to go. We've seen most of the languages, most of the languages being written, most of these models. development has been fast, it has been abundant. We've seen the progress, the trajectory around development of open source models. They are way faster than we have these models that are mostly maybe consumed by or are mostly kept by big organizations for maybe their use of for private use or for commercial use. So I'd say open source models are the best. For my own perspective, I think using open source models or using these pre-trained models really come a long way than trying to train a model from scratch. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Wafula. And I think mine, because we are nearing the close of this session, I'm going to just ask one more question. I'm not going to ask another technical one, but this one is more to just get to understand. Let's say from someone who doesn't know AI is someone who has never interacted with AI, they've just known ChatGPT and that's all, right? So if they were to like, let's say I wanted my data used to train a model, at what point can I withdraw such? Or like, I gave consent that I wanted my data used to train some model. And then along the way, I feel maybe, no, I don't want this anymore. Is there room for me to withdraw such a right from a legal point?